15 Darkest Secrets on Family Matters That Shocked the World. Welcome to our channel, Legends of Black Excellence, where we uncover the untold stories behind your favorite shows. Today, we're diving deep into Family Matters, the beloved 90s sitcom that seemed picture-perfect on screen. But behind the laughs and life lessons were secrets you never saw coming. From backstage drama to shocking character exits, here are the 15 darkest secrets of Family Matters that will truly leave you stunned. The Urkel Takeover. What started as a one-off, nerdy neighbor with high-waisted pants and a squeaky voice soon morphed into a cultural juggernaut that flipped Family Matters upside down. Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White, was never meant to stick around. But the moment he stumbled onto screen with his suspenders and catchphrase, "Did I do that?" America couldn't get enough. The show's original focus was the Winslow family, a grounded, working-class black family navigating everyday life. But Urkel's runaway popularity triggered a seismic shift. ABC executives saw dollar signs in his quirky appeal and decided to center the entire show around him. Suddenly, cast members like Jo Marie Payton, Harriet, and Reginald VelJohnson, Carl, found themselves sidelined on what used to be their show. A meeting with producers broke the news: every episode moving forward would revolve around Urkel. This decision didn't just disrupt creative dynamics, it shook personal ones. Castmates, including Thelma Hopkins, reportedly felt blindsided and undervalued. White himself later admitted he sensed the tension, but was barely out of his teens, suddenly thrust into stardom and lunchboxes across the country. Yet over time, hostility gave way to a strange camaraderie. 9 seasons together meant shared laughs, frustrations, and growth. Still, the Urkel takeover remains one of television's most dramatic character hijackings, proof of how a breakout star can rewrite a show's destiny, and how quickly showbiz can crown a king while quietly pushing others to the margins. The Disappearing Act. One of the most baffling mysteries in sitcom history isn't a plot twist, it's the unexplained erasure of a main character. For 4 seasons, Judy Winslow, the youngest daughter in the Winslow household, lit up the screen with sass and charm. Played by Jamie Foxworth, she was part of the core family dynamic, right alongside Eddie and Laura. Then, one day, she was gone. No boarding school. No moving in with relatives. No goodbye. Just gone, as if she never existed. Fans were left scratching their heads, but the truth behind the vanishing act was far more disturbing than any storyline. According to Foxworth herself, it wasn't the result of some grand creative decision. The producers simply decided they didn't need Judy anymore. Worse, the actress revealed that some cast members knew about her removal before she did, creating a painful, isolating atmosphere on set. Jo Marie Payton, who played Harriet Winslow, reportedly tried to advocate for Foxworth, challenging the decision behind closed doors. But her protests fell on deaf ears. The network had made its choice, and Judy Winslow became a ghost of sitcom past. Foxworth's removal wasn't just a career blow, it had emotional consequences. Losing a role so suddenly at a young age left her adrift, setting off a chain of events that led her far from the wholesome world of Family Matters. Her disappearance wasn't just a TV mystery, it was a real-life casualty of a show that chose ratings over responsibility. The Aftermath of Fame. For Jamie Foxworth, the abrupt end of her time on Family Matters was just the beginning of a much darker journey. After being unceremoniously written off the show without explanation, the young actress was left grappling with rejection, confusion, and a sudden loss of stability. While the rest of the cast continued to thrive in the show's growing success, Foxworth found herself completely adrift. Desperate to find a new path, she briefly pursued a music career with her sisters, but when that didn't take off, she made a decision that shocked fans who once saw her as the sweet youngest Winslow. At just 19, under financial strain and seeking independence from her strict upbringing, she entered the adult film industry under the name Crave. Foxworth later expressed deep regret, admitting the experience left her emotionally shaken and disconnected from herself. But the real storm came in the years that followed. Isolated and overwhelmed, she turned to alcohol and marijuana as a way to cope with her depression and public invisibility. At her lowest, she spent most of her time shut away in her bedroom, numb and self-medicating. Yet, in one of the most inspiring turns in this story, Foxworth eventually fought her way back. In 2008, She appeared on Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew, bravely opening up about her struggles in front of millions. It wasn't easy, she relapsed briefly, but discovering she was pregnant gave her the strength to finally leave her addictions behind. What began as a heartbreaking fallout from fame ultimately became a hard-won story of survival, resilience, and redemption. The pay gap predicament. Behind the warm family values and sitcom laughs of Family Matters lurked a harsh financial reality, one that drew a painful divide among its cast. While the show blossomed into a ratings powerhouse, generating piles of revenue through merchandise and syndication, not everyone was reaping the rewards. In fact, some cast members were earning what could only be described as crumbs compared to their co-stars. Jaleel White's Steve Urkel had become a pop culture icon, his face plastered on lunchboxes, t-shirts, even cereal boxes. And with that fame came the checks, big ones. But for supporting actors like Jamie Foxworth and Thelma Hopkins, the paycheck disparity was staggering. We're not talking a slight difference, we're talking about a gap wide enough to breed resentment. As one source described it, it was like comparing a child's allowance to a Fortune 500 CEO's salary. This imbalance didn't just affect morale, it changed lives. After Foxworth was dropped from the show, the lack of financial security played a significant role in her controversial pivot to adult entertainment. The producer's assumption that no one would notice her disappearance was perhaps tied to this very hierarchy, a silent reminder of who mattered most on set. And yet, few spoke up at the time. In Hollywood, challenging your paycheck can mark you as difficult, a career killer. So the actors smiled for the cameras, hit their marks, and quietly buried their frustration. It wasn't until years later that the truth surfaced. The Winslow family might have looked united on screen, but off-camera, inequality was a recurring guest star. Reginald VelJohnson's typecast trap. For Reginald VelJohnson, landing the role of Carl Winslow on Family Matters should have been the ultimate win, a steady paycheck, a lead role, and millions of fans. But in Hollywood, even success can come with invisible shackles. VelJohnson, who had already played cops in Die Hard and Ghostbusters, found himself permanently stamped with a badge, not just on screen, but in the eyes of casting directors everywhere. At first, being Hollywood's go-to cop guy seemed like a good thing. After all, steady work is rare in the entertainment industry. But for an actor with range and ambition, being locked into one archetype can feel like a creative prison. No matter how compelling or heartfelt his performance as Carl Winslow was, the industry couldn't see past the uniform. Auditions turned into déjà vu, the same roles, the same authority figure, the same expectations. It got to the point where people on the street approached him as if he were an actual police officer, blurring the line between character and reality. In interviews, VelJohnson has openly reflected on how unintended the typecasting was. One role led to another, and soon he wasn't just playing cops, he was one in the eyes of Hollywood. But instead of letting it defeat him, VelJohnson turned the situation on its head. He embraced the typecast, using it to secure voiceover work, TV cameos, and a steady presence in pop culture. Still, his story is a cautionary tale. Even in success, actors can become trapped in the very roles that made them famous, a reminder that visibility doesn't always equal versatility in the eyes of the industry. The physical toll of comedy. To audiences, Steve Urkel was all laughs, a lovable, clumsy genius who tripped over furniture, crashed into doors, and delivered slapstick gold with every episode. But for Jaleel White, the young actor behind the suspenders, playing Urkel wasn't just about nailing punchlines, it was about surviving the physical demands of one of TV's most energetic characters. From the outside, sitcom life might seem cushy. But White's performance required relentless physicality, pratfalls, exaggerated movements, and non-stop high-energy chaos. Week after week, his body became the punchline, and the crash pad. Behind the scenes, the toll was mounting. One stunt in particular reportedly raised serious concern on set, a reminder that what seemed like harmless comedy could carry real risk, especially as White transitioned from a young teen to a growing adult. As he got older, the antics that once came naturally became harder to sustain. What was once cute for a 12-year-old became grueling for a teenager expected to up the ante every season. And unlike a trained stuntman, White didn't have the luxury of a double. He was Urkel, and that meant giving 110% of his body to every gag, trip, and fall. The real irony? The more beloved Urkel became, the more pressure there was to push the physical envelope, often at the cost of White's well-being. His experience sheds light on a side of comedy that few fans ever consider. Sometimes, the biggest laughs come with the biggest bruises. The spin-off surprise. Long before Steve Urkel stole the spotlight, Family Matters began with a very different vision, and an unexpected origin story. It wasn't an original concept, but a spin-off of another sitcom, Perfect Strangers. In that show, Jo Marie Payton played Harriet Winslow, not as a family matriarch, but as an elevator operator in a Chicago office building. Her performance stood out so much that network executives saw potential for more, much more. They built an entire series around Harriet, fleshing out her home life and introducing viewers to the Winslow family. At first, Family Matters was exactly that, a show about family. The focus was on Harriet, her husband Carl, played by Reginald VelJohnson, and their kids. It was grounded, heartfelt, and resonated with audiences looking for relatable, working-class stories. But when Jaleel White's Steve Urkel made his accidental debut in episode 12, everything changed. Urkel was only supposed to appear once, but his awkward brilliance captivated viewers, and suddenly the show's DNA began to mutate. What started as a spin-off about Harriet Winslow turned into a full-blown Urkel vehicle. The twist? Many fans never even knew Family Matters had spun off from Perfect Strangers. The network tried to connect the dots with cross-promotions, but by the time Urkelmania took hold, those origins were buried under teleportation devices and alter egos like Stefan Urquell. What makes this twist so fascinating is the irony. The show that was built to give Harriet her own spotlight ended up sidelining her, and rewriting its identity, all because one quirky neighbor became a cultural phenomenon. The disappearing mom mystery. For nearly 9 seasons, Jo Marie Payton was the steady heartbeat of Family Matters, portraying Harriet Winslow, the no-nonsense, loving matriarch who held the family together. But in a baffling move during the show's final season, Payton quietly vanished from the cast, and someone else took her place. Literally. Without any in-story explanation or send-off, Harriet was suddenly played by a different actress, Judy Ann Elder. One week viewers saw the familiar, commanding presence of Jo Marie Payton. The next, there was a stranger in the Winslow living room, acting as if nothing had changed. No goodbye, no plotline, just a recast so abrupt it felt like a glitch in the TV matrix. So why did Payton leave? Behind the scenes, she had grown increasingly frustrated. Despite being the original star and the reason the show existed as a spin-off from Perfect Strangers, her role had become less central over time, especially as the series shifted its focus to Steve Urkel. Payton reportedly tried to negotiate more creative opportunities with ABC, much like Bob Saget did while juggling Full House and America's Funniest Home Videos. When those offers didn't materialize, she made the difficult decision to step away. The producers, however, weren't ready to let go of the Harriet character. Rather than writing her out, they simply swapped actresses, a move that deeply affected the cast. Reginald VelJohnson likened it to getting a divorce and marrying someone else, while Darius McCrary said it felt like losing his TV mom. In today's social media era, such a major cast change would have sparked outrage. But in the 90s, many viewers barely noticed. Still, to those who did, the quiet disappearance of the original Harriet remains one of the show's strangest and saddest behind-the-scenes secrets. The post-show legal dramas. While Family Matters brought wholesome laughs and moral lessons to millions, life off-screen wasn't always so clean-cut for some of its stars. After the cameras stopped rolling, several cast members found themselves entangled in legal trouble, revealing a side of fame that fans never saw coming. Darius McCrary, who played Eddie Winslow, was at the center of a very public and disturbing legal battle in 2015. His then-wife, Tammy Bronner, filed a restraining order against him, accusing McCrary of being physically abusive to both her and their young daughter. The allegations were severe, painting a picture far removed from the responsible older brother fans remembered. McCrary denied the claims and responded with his own restraining order, launching a messy back-and-forth that splashed across tabloids and cast a long shadow over his once squeaky clean image. Jaleel White, the beloved face of Steve Urkel, also faced controversy post-show. In 2012, he was accused of domestic violence by an ex-girlfriend, claims he firmly denied. Though no charges were filed, the allegations tarnished the public perception of the actor who had once embodied TV's favorite nerd. These legal dramas served as sobering reminders that behind the nostalgic glow of a classic sitcom were real people, with real problems. For fans who grew up idolizing the Winslow family, learning that their favorite stars were dealing with serious personal turmoil added a layer of complexity to the show's legacy. It wasn't just fiction that ended, it was the illusion of perfection, shattered by headlines no one expected. The Almost Rudy. Before he became the suspenders-wearing, cheese-loving legend known as Steve Urkel, Jaleel White came within inches of landing a very different role, one that would have changed sitcom history. In the early casting stages of The Cosby Show, White was the frontrunner to play Rudy Huxtable. Yes, that Rudy, the youngest, most adorable member of the Huxtable clan. White had aced multiple auditions and was even told to start looking for a place to live in New York. At just a few steps away from securing the part, he was blindsided during the final callback. A young girl walked into the audition room, Keisha Knight Pulliam, and everything changed. Bill Cosby made a last-minute decision that Rudy would be a girl, mirroring his real-life family dynamic. Just like that, the role slipped through White's fingers. The near miss was devastating for young Jaleel, but as fate would have it, it opened the door to something even bigger. Years later, he would create one of the most iconic sitcom characters of all time, a role that wasn't even in the pilot of Family Matters but would go on to define the show entirely. It's one of television's greatest what-ifs. Had White landed the role of Rudy, The Cosby Show would have looked very different, and there might never have been a Steve Urkel. It's a powerful reminder of how a single casting decision can alter not just one actor's path, but the entire landscape of pop culture. The dancing drama. For fans who grew up with Steve Urkel's awkward charm, seeing Jaleel White on Dancing with the Stars in 2012 was like watching a childhood hero take a victory lap. But behind the sequins and smiles, a darker, more combative side of the actor came to light, one that caught both viewers and producers completely off guard. During rehearsals with professional dancer Kim Johnson, tensions reached a boiling point. After accidentally stepping on her foot, Johnson reportedly reacted with a simple ouch. But White's response shocked everyone in the room. Instead of laughing it off, he allegedly lashed out, accusing her of overreacting and calling her a baby. Things escalated quickly. According to multiple reports, White then turned his frustration toward the producers, berating them for pairing him with what he allegedly called a stupid partner. When another dancer stepped in to defuse the situation, White reportedly lashed out at him too, creating a scene that left cast and crew stunned. The incident flew in the face of the lovable image fans had of Urkel, the bumbling genius who brought joy to millions. For White, it was a harsh lesson in public perception. While he had spent years trying to break free from the Urkel persona, this outburst painted him in a whole new light, and not a flattering one. It served as a stark reminder that celebrity pressure doesn't just disappear with age, and that when old icons return to the spotlight, the past and present can clash in unexpected, headline-making ways. The sci-fi shift. When Family Matters first aired, it was a grounded family sitcom, relatable, heartwarming, and centered on the everyday challenges of the Winslow household. But somewhere along the way, the show took a sharp turn into science fiction? Yes, what began with curfews and kitchen table talks evolved into teleportation devices, time machines, and even clones. At the center of this bizarre shift was, of course, Steve Urkel. As his popularity exploded, so did the writer's creativity, or desperation, depending on who you ask. Urkel didn't just invent quirky gadgets, he turned into his suave alter ego Stephen Urquell, built a robot version of himself, and ended up traveling to space. What once was a sitcom about family life transformed into something that felt more like Back to the Future with a laugh track. Not everyone in the cast was thrilled. Jo Marie Payton, who played Harriet Winslow, openly criticized the show's late-season pivot, comparing it to jumping the shark, a TV term for when a show abandons logic in favor of outrageous plotlines. Her sentiment echoed what many fans were thinking: where was the family in Family Matters? The sci-fi twist may have kept ratings afloat for a while, but it also marked the show's departure from its original soul. While some viewers embraced the chaos, others missed the heartfelt dynamics that once made the Winslows feel like their own family. In the end, the sci-fi shift became a symbol of a show that had lost its grounding, trading realism for spectacle and relatability for rocket ships. Thelma Hopkins' frustrations. When Thelma Hopkins stepped into the role of Aunt Rachel on Family Matters, she brought more than just comic relief. She added heart, resilience, and a refreshing portrayal of a single mother raising her son Richie. Aunt Rachel quickly became a fan favorite, offering warmth, wisdom, and those famous homemade pies that seemed to solve any problem in the Winslow household. But behind the scenes, Hopkins wasn't feeling the same love. As Steve Urkel's popularity soared, the show's focus shifted sharply toward his sci-fi antics and quirky inventions, leaving once central characters like Aunt Rachel in the background. Hopkins reportedly grew frustrated as her screen time dwindled and her character's development stalled. A role that started with so much promise had been reduced to occasional appearances and forgotten storylines. Hopkins believed Aunt Rachel had so much more to offer, from exploring her career ambitions to diving deeper into the challenges of single parenthood. But those stories were never told. Feeling underutilized and creatively stifled, she eventually chose to leave the show in search of roles that would allow her to fully showcase her talent. Her departure left a noticeable gap in the Winslow family dynamic. While Richie stayed on, the show was never quite the same without Rachel's sharp comebacks and maternal presence. Fans missed her, and so did the heart of the show. Though her time on Family Matters ended in disappointment, Thelma Hopkins went on to have a successful career beyond the series, proving that sometimes stepping away is the only way to grow. Impact on the cast's mental health. To the millions who tuned in each week, Family Matters looked like a dream gig, a hit show, a tight-knit cast, and endless laughs. But behind the scenes, the emotional toll on the actors told a very different story. Sudden fame, long work hours, and the pressures of maintaining a public image left lasting scars on several cast members, especially the younger ones. Jaleel White, forever remembered as Steve Urkel, has spoken candidly about feeling trapped by the character that made him a star. Despite his talent and range, Hollywood couldn't see past the suspenders and catchphrases. For years, White struggled to break free from Urkel's shadow, a typecasting that affected not just his career, but his self-worth. The challenges didn't end there. Other cast members faced their own battles transitioning from child stardom into adulthood, where opportunities dried up and identity crises took root. Jamie Foxworth's mental health spiraled after her abrupt removal from the show, triggering a cascade of depression, isolation, and substance abuse that haunted her for years. While the Winslows offered on-screen comfort and stability, real life was far less forgiving. The lack of support systems in the industry at the time meant these young actors were often left to navigate fame and rejection alone. Smiles on camera masked private struggles that wouldn't come to light until long after the final episode aired. Fortunately, many cast members have since opened up, found healing, and reconnected with fans through reunions and personal growth. But their stories remain a sobering reminder: behind even the brightest sitcoms can lie battles no one sees, and strength no one ever expected. The failed finale. After 9 seasons of laughter, love, and Urkel-induced chaos, Family Matters ended not with a heartfelt goodbye, but with Steve Urkel floating in space. Literally. In what remains one of the most baffling conclusions in TV history, the series finale abandoned family drama for sci-fi absurdity. Urkel, now a full-fledged inventor, embarks on a mission into orbit using one of his homemade contraptions. Naturally, things go wrong, and he ends up stuck in space, cliffhanger style. Then, fade to black. No resolution, no return to Earth, no closure for the Winslow family or the fans who had grown up with them. The truth behind the finale is just as frustrating as the episode itself. The show was abruptly cancelled after airing, leaving no time for a proper send-off. Key storylines, like Urkel and Laura's relationship, were left dangling. Longtime viewers, who had invested nearly a decade into this fictional family, felt robbed of a satisfying conclusion. It didn't help that the final season had already veered deep into sci-fi territory, a far cry from the show's grounded beginnings. Teleportation, cloning, space travel, Family Matters had become almost unrecognizable from its early days as a heartfelt family sitcom. The finale was the cherry on top of an identity crisis. Yet, in a strange twist, the bizarre ending has earned its place in pop culture lore. It's mocked, memed, and remembered, not for what it wrapped up, but for how wildly it fell apart. In the end, Family Matters didn't land gracefully, but it left a mark. A weird, unforgettable, orbiting mark. Family Matters may have delivered heartwarming lessons and belly laughs on the surface, but behind the scenes, it was a whirlwind of creative clashes, personal struggles, and unexpected twists. From vanishing characters to spacebound finales, these 15 dark secrets reveal a much deeper, and messier, story than what made it to air. Which of these secrets shocked you the most? Did you notice Judy's sudden disappearance, or were you one of the fans blindsided by the finale's bizarre cliffhanger? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear which moment left you speechless. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the untold history of one of TV's most iconic sitcoms, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel, Legends of Black Excellence, for more behind-the-scenes stories, forgotten facts, and nostalgic throwbacks. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay iconic.